Hello, welcome. It's April 1st. First off, we'd like to start out by saying happy birthday to our producer, Bill. Happy birthday. Today we have with us, we have Jake Jacobs, a retired homicide detective from Philadelphia Police Department. And I'm Greg Highlands, your U.S. citizen, a former retired special agent with the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. The title of today's show is Second Amendment Rights with Citizen Responsibilities. And today our guest is Kevn Dylus, retired U.S. Army, founder and chief instructor of Blue Ridge Marksmanship, LLC, out of Burnsville, North Carolina. Welcome, Bill. Welcome, Kevin. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on.
Hey, Bill, before we start, or Kevin, I'm sorry, I'm getting stuck. I have senior moments all the time. Kevin, and you'll have a chance to rectify that when I'm your student here soon. Let's go ahead. Let's open up with one of your videos. I really like this video. It kind of lays the groundwork nicely for our show.
For 25 years, I had the honor and privilege of serving this great nation, and I'm going to carry that in my heart every day. When I left the military and came home, I started to look around, and I drew parallels from my military experience to the civilian life. And the truth is, danger can strike at any time, in or around buildings, near vehicles, social gatherings, or when you're by yourself. With all of this in mind, that's when it hit me. I need a place to combine these factors, and that's when I found it, Blue Ridge Marksmanship. Here at Blue Ridge Marksmanship, our focus is to challenge your thought process as well as your skills. We strive to make Blue Ridge Marksmanship a place where any man or woman can become better at protecting themselves and the people that mean the most to them. We pride ourselves in working with all groups, from new gun owners and users to those that carry as part or all of their profession. We have a simple goal, and that is to introduce proven concepts and challenge the thought process of the individual to be better equipped. So if you find yourself in a situation that requires split-second decision making, you have the tools to come out on top. It doesn't matter your level of experience. It doesn't matter if you're a civilian or trained professional. Our instruction will challenge you and push your limits to refine your individual skill set. We are not just another gun school. We are a learning experience. Come visit us at Blue Ridge Marksmanship.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for taking your time to be with us today. I think that's opening video. There's so much going on in that video that when I watched it, I thought that would be perfect to do an introduction with you today.
Thank you. Everything in there is pretty true to still to this day. We've been open now 11 years. And when I left the military, I thought I was normal, if you will. And my wife always told me, like, you're not normal. And I was normal with the group of people that I was with. And then when I got out and slowly assimilated into society, if you will, I was like, okay, I'm not normal. So we've got to show a lot of folks out there how to protect themselves. Has always been our mission statement. Keep people on the planet, keep them out of jail.
Outstanding. So what I did was a few years ago, it was about 2 years ago. I had been watching these videos online. My background, of course, since 1986, I've been in either military or law enforcement. And then when I retired in 2018, I completely unplugged and I had to learn other things, like learn how to use a chainsaw, not cut my fingers off, that kind of stuff. So I hadn't trained from 2018 to 2024. And I had been watching these videos with these guys running these AK-47s and being a Cold War veteran. I was like, that was always the enemy. That was the weapon of my enemy. And I was watching these guys doing it in competitions, but the only training I ever had on it was some familiarization training that I had in the Marine Corps. They took us out to a range and then we got to shoot it. So I went online and I did some searching. And the first two hits one was Gunsight in Arizona, which is a legend in the firearms community. And then you were second in the school. So then I went ahead and clicked on the link, and I was checking your website out. And I was like, wow, the multitude of courses that you offer at your school are outstanding. And then, of course, what's the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at who your instructors are and what are their backgrounds, because you want to learn with somebody who's kind of been there and done that. And so as I started watching your videos, and then when I actually came to your school, I was blown away. And one of the reasons why I was blown away was you and your instructors. So I'm 50. Well, I was like 56 when I first came to your school, but you had other folks, and some were physically agile and in good shape. And then there was folks like me that weren't so good in good shape. And I have my knee replaced. I don't have a full bend in my knee. And so the first course I took was the AK operator course. And there was some folks there that were training with me that could not lay in a prone position and get up. So one of the cool things that your instructors did was you quickly, seamlessly transformed that drill so that individual didn't have to get into that position, but he could safely run the drill, and you get the effect of what you needed to get across to that person for the training. Now, that wasn't the first time that I saw that in your AR operator course that I ended up taking later with you and another instructor. You had an individual that couldn't stand for very long, and you were able to include them in the drill. So I guess what I'm getting to say with all this dialogue that I'm throwing out there is that I loved it that you have all kinds of different people come into your course: men, women, first responders, former law enforcement, and citizens who've never had any experience at all or exposure. All different politics. One of the great things is you have the whole political spectrum coming there, because some people wear t-shirts and they put it out there, but
yeah.
you've never addressed any of that. We're all there, and everybody's really friendly. I've 4 courses in 2 years. Everybody's been really cool, the students and the staff. So I know I just said a lot right there, but I'm trying to get across that my experience with your school is that it's one of the perfect schools I've ever been to, and I've been to a lot of schools.
Thank you. I'm very humbled by the people we attract. I hear people like yourself at the end of the course, if it's the first time you've ever trained with us, they get pulled aside and they say, "Kevin, is this normally who comes to these courses?" I'm like, "Yeah." We get, like you just said, a full spectrum. In any course, there might be a active duty Marine, Army guy, law enforcement, first responder, to somebody who just figured out which way the bullet went. And we train to the individual and bring them up to the course. And I know that sounds really cliche. You've been there multiple times. I think you can attest to that. And one of the easiest analogies I always use with folks is when I work with law enforcement, I've had multiple times a 6-month rookie right here next to a 19-year SWAT guy. And at the end of the training, 3 days, 5 days, whatever, they both look at me and say, "Oh my God, I learned so much." And so we convert that over to the civilian side of the house for a 2-day or a 1-day course, depending on what we're teaching. And we really pride ourselves. And I am honestly just fortunate to have the instructors that I have. And these guys are top notch, bottom line. And we deal with cross-eye dominance, missing an eye, missing fingers, missing parts, missing limbs, bad back, bad knees. And but those people still need to know how to train. So we're always going to tailor it to fit our audience.
So with that, so like one of the things that I noticed at the school was, and in your curriculum, is that so a lot of people, and there's different categories of gun owners in the United States. And just to name a few different scenarios, is that there's a guy out there who just loves guns, and he goes and buys them, and then he never takes them to the range. Then there's individuals that buy guns and they like go and they sit down at a bench and they shoot from a bench. And not that these are bad things, but the fact of the matter is that if unless you actually go out there and get the training to actually know how that gun functions properly, to include moving and shooting, one of the courses that you offer is, and I'm going to say it simplistically, so forgive me if you don't like the way I say it, but shooting from a car, shooting from behind a car, and I've heard you name off A frame, G frame, or whatever. And do you want to go ahead and kind of talk about a little bit of that?
Sure, absolutely. You know, in today's society, in majority of your major cities, and then every one of your mid-sized to small cities, we get from A to B in our cars, our vehicles. And if you're at a stop sign, a stoplight, pulling into work, leaving work, pulling in your house, you need to know how to protect yourself. And to super fast get a couple things straight. You know, people talk about cover. So cover stops bullets. And, you know, when I hear all these misnomers that, oh my God, my car is a bullet magnet, I'm going to die. There's nothing that's going to protect me in my car. And I'm like, really? Let me show you this. And so we go through and teach people how to use their vehicles if they're caught in a vehicle ambush, meaning they stop at a stop sign, stop light, and they get attacked. And then also if they're, you know, at a grocery store, they put the cart away, going back to their car or moving to their car from the grocery store, and something happens. Like, can I use my car to survive? And the answer 99% of the time is yes. There's some minutia stuff, but the answer is yes. And I think because of all of the misnomers and all of the lies that are out there, you know, existed 40 years ago, that people think, oh, I'm going to get, you know, this one guy we saw one time, he got shot in his car, therefore cars don't do anything. And I'm trying to show people and broaden their minds and like, look, you can survive. And when it comes to like the law enforcement and military community, these are musts. Your civilians, I think it's solid information to know. If you and I, Greg, were driving through Ferguson, Missouri, whatever that was, 15 years ago, whatever it was, stop for gas and something happens, like, how do we protect ourselves? And I think that's important. People should know just in general how to protect themselves when something goes wrong. And there's definitely some violent cities in the country, Chicago, Memphis, Little Rock, Detroit, etc., that if, you know, you should know how to use everything you can to protect yourself and your loved ones, for crying out loud.
Exactly. So I'm citizen, I'm a US citizen, and I decide that I want to exercise my Second Amendment liberties. And I'm going to go buy first question you always get is, what type of gun should I have to defend my home? You know, obviously, if you decide you're going to carry every day, concealed carry or open carry, it's most likely going to be a pistol. And then you say, okay, now do I know how to operate this thing to the best of my ability? Do I weapon, you know, the dexterity and everything? Am I going to go shoot? Am I going to go train? And so you usually do some kind of basic training, and then we like specifically talking about a car, and you have these courses. What I like about you is you walk the dog with individuals, and then you time out, and then you expand on some things of what you're doing. So right now you have people watching and say, why the heck would you want to train shooting from a car? Well, you know, the first thing is, and you're going to say this, is that you always get yourself, if you can safely get yourself out of a hostile situation, you want to remove yourself from the situation. And a lot of times you're not going to be able to. And so you need to know what you're going to do. Are you going to present your weapon through your window? Are you going to open the door and get out and try to take care of the situation? Are you going to engage through your windshield? To the best of my knowledge, you're probably one of the few schools where you can go and get that kind of education.
100%. I'm aware of two others in the country that do what we do. And again, I've done a lot of research. I always look at what the Joneses are doing. I myself go to training I try to get there twice a year. I don't want to lie. I try to get there twice a year to somebody else's school to go not only be an Indian to see how others instruct, but also learn what I don't know. And, and it pertains to the vehicles, man. I watched so many people, for example, you brought up shooting through the windshield. If somebody comes in front of my car, and there's there's probably a lot more, but there's two that really ring upstairs during that summer of love after the Floyd incident, where some guy is sitting in, he's got a Chevy stepside pickup truck. His wife and brand new baby are in the truck with him. And this moron steps in front of him to block him from going into town there. And then the guy lifts his shirt and shows he's got a gun. And the guy inside the Chevy, like, what's the guy in the Chevy truck going to do? And, he froze. Nothing happened. So I'm not going to surmise what that guy was thinking, but I'll tell you this. It is very hard to fly the airplane and build that fuselage simultaneously, and experience or knowledge. You needed that 10 minutes ago. And so for us to be able to work with people and bring up that situation and say, hey, here's your options. Here's what you can do, both from a legal standpoint and a self-protection standpoint. And I think so many people, their minds are just blown. They're like, I never thought of that. And you've met me, Greg. I might not be the sharpest bulb in the chandelier, but I can show folks how to do things and break it down at a very simplistic bite size. And you're able to cognitively recall those techniques and save yourself, save your friends, your family.
Exactly. And that brings us to another part of this is that you offer room clearing. And so you're in your house and you have somebody that broke into your house, and the importance of actually knowing how to, cut corners, clear corners, and clear your house. And you even go into the part that you don't know, maybe necessarily have to clear the whole house. Maybe you post up in one room and then you have one door you got to worry about getting open, the perpetrator opening, and you air that door out, whatever the case. I like the fact that when you teach these courses to include your room clearing, that you take the time to discuss those scenarios. And I would like you maybe expand a little bit on that if you want.
Absolutely. I hear it all the time. Well, what if they kick my door in, right? So 2 a.m. arbitrary time, they kick my door in, and what are you going to go do? And, there's Greg. I will defend my home. I must defend my castle. All right. Well, wait a minute. Greg, who do you have in the house with you? Oh, your wife. Okay, cool. So I hope your wife it has given you the best night of your life, because if you go out there and challenge that bad guy, he has the upper hand. You do not. And when I explain this to people, and not only that, we show it to them through our course, and in our course, we give them the options and show them, like, wait a minute, this is fantasy land and this is reality. And I've been teaching room clearance, room search for over 38 years. And I've been to some really cool schools. And to see the average bear, like, why are you going out there and risking everything for your car keys and your TV? Like, what's out there to protect right now? If you got small children, that's a whole different animal. And then to your point, the other two things you brought up and you touched on, verbal. What if you're the dog that catches the car? You go downstairs, present, dude in the living room goes, hey, I'm good, man. What do you do now? And so we talk people through how to deal with that, because if not, it's like loading. You were prepared. I will go downstairs and I will clear my house. Pew, pew, pew. Okay, well, now what? The dude says, hey, man, I don't want any. Now what? And you both just stand there. I've seen grown men, show up with $1,000 rigs on and all the rest of this mess. And Andy, one of our instructors, he's a bad guy a lot. He loves it. And he points a gun, and they point a gun back, and Andy raises his hands, and then the dude looks at me. And I'm like, I'm your guardian angel. I'm not here. What are you going to do about that? And take them through that process. And, one thing being in the military has taught me is the mistakes that I make that are hard learned, I never forget. And so when you allow the students to, quote unquote, step on it, and maybe they embarrass themselves. We do not embarrass the students. When they embarrass themselves, per se, that never leaves their mind, and they remember it. And then on the flip side of it, you talk about not being able to clear every room. If you show up and your front door is kicked in and you came home from work and you're like, okay, who's in the house? And we take them through the step process. We call it a 2-line flow chart. Is anybody in the house? Yes, no. The answer is no. Get back in your car and call the cops. Why are you going in there? Do you clackety clack, roll them bones? Do you really want to put your life and your skills up against somebody else that you don't know who they are? And then if they're your wife, your kids, whoever is in the home, how do you deal with that and do so in a timely manner, safe, threat mitigate, problem mitigate, and risk mitigate? I tell you what, it's a lot easier to do when one of our instructors or I is helping you on the first time versus you doing it for the first time tomorrow at 2 p.m. So yeah, that course, I love every course we teach. There's no course that I don't like, but those are two definitely great courses we do teach.
So like I said, I have 28 and a half years of military and law enforcement, and I will tell you that the majority of the chunk of my career, I was afforded to go and shoot and qualify once a quarter. So that's 4 times a year. But the reality is that I probably only did it twice a year because it was mandatory that you had to qualify twice a year with your primary weapon would be my pistol, or I was carrying a Glock. So what that means is that twice a year I shot at stationary targets at the 3, the 7, the 10, the 15, and the 25. At the 25 behind a barricade, and I shot from the kneeling position and the standing. And so that's I believe that our PPC, the pistol qualification course, was about 60 rounds, I believe. So I shot 120 rounds a year on the company dime, and that covers them from liability. That I had the ability to do that. So for the U.S. citizen, that just bought a handgun and they've maybe gone out and did some plinking with it, and they haven't trained. So we've just talked about having a handgun and training with it in your car, and we've talked about doing it in your home. But then you get into the fact that you're going to carry it every day. So, and this is usually where everybody ends up throwing their pistol in a safe and it never gets carried every day. But let's go ahead and assume that you're going to carry it every day. One of the things I love about your teaching at Blue Ridge Marksmanship is that through your experience and your instructor's experience, you've done a lot of the work for me, because I don't have to go out and buy stupid stuff that doesn't work. Gear that just don't work. And I've already done that, like whether it be Call of Duty and it's a Call of Duty gun or whatever. I mean, you just probably a million jokes that you guys have about some of us, the stuff that we show up with at your school. I like the fact that you talk about that, retention holsters. So let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit.
So we get a lot of folks that they show up with the wrong gear. And it's not, again, I'm not Buddha. And some of these folks, they just don't know any better. And so if you're getting all your information from law enforcement, which I love my brothers in blue, but it's like, okay, so I've been a cop for 20 years and I carry a level 3 holster. Why? Because you're dealing with bad guys. You're arresting bad guys. You're putting those cute little bracelets on very bad people and you're doing it by yourself in the middle of the night. And so what do you tell your neighbor? Hey man, you need a level 3 holster. Okay, sure. I won't even argue that, right? But if you're open carrying. If you're concealed carrying, I would, and here's one of my tests. Can you draw your gun with either hand out of your holster? Because you're living in a fantasy world if you think you know what's going to happen. I don't know. My dominant hand may be engaged in keeping bad dude off me, and I use my support hand to draw the firearm. Maybe my dominant hand got hurt. I have to use my support hand to draw the firearm. And, I just got done working with almost 20 law enforcement officers last week at a variety of levels. There was over half of them were of SWAT, and then the other half had different specialties, a couple different agencies. And one of the drills I ran them through in a law enforcement vehicle course was to draw the gun with either hand, simulating that you were in an accident, you got your wrist cut, or you lost the use of a hand because of an accident, slip, trip, fall, broken glass, cut metal. And I told them, like, hey, go ahead, draw the gun with your support hand. 2 or 3 of them, I'm not going to lie, their names will never, ever be brought out, Greg. The look on their face. It looked like Beaker from the Muppet Show. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, oh, hell, it's not that hard. So to go on to your question, if you're going to open carry, yeah, 100%, you need some kind of retention. Why? Because there's this guy, literally, I see him every now and then at Ingalls, and he's bent over the meat section, and there's a quarter moon going on. You know what I'm saying? And he carries at 5 o'clock. And I had to share that image. It's burned in my brain. You get some love right there. And he's got a Glock in a freaking Gelco $4.99 holster. And he's over. And I could just walk over there and take it from him, execute him in the meat section, and go on and do whatever I want to go do. But I don't, because I'm a good person. And, so if you're going to carry concealed, and I'm trying to choose my words very carefully, I think you have a duty to yourself and your family to know something about doing that. When we're going to drive a car, we learn how to drive a car. Now, granted, driving a car is not the Constitution. I get that. But go get something training-wise to learn how to do it. If you're carrying concealed, my opinion, and both of you gentlemen may have a similar or different opinion or converse opinion, I don't need a level of retention if I'm carrying concealed due to what might be going on in that environment. And even being concealed, I have a expected surprise. You don't know I have a firearm. Now, if I printed or I lifted my arms up and got something off the top shelf and you saw my gun, okay, well then now. But I'm going to, ballpark number, Kevin made up number, 80% of the time you're carrying concealed, nobody knows. So, I think that if you're carrying concealed properly, adjust your wardrobe a little bit. You don't have to buy all the Secret Service clothing to go with your concealed carry rig. But you can get away with a lot. And so it's just like people overthink it and, they throw money at it. I'm going to go buy all this extra shirt. Like, man, I wear Hawaiian shirts out in public with a gun underneath it and a spare mag and a flashlight in my pocket. You know what I'm saying? And nobody knows. And my shirt, you can buy it from Old Navy to wherever my wife buys my clothes at. Okay. I'm not ashamed. My wife dresses me. It's just like, you don't have to overthink it. And I think what happens is you get people who they try to be so cool and never see the gun. And we have this conversation on the weekly. Well, Kevin, what if somebody sees my gun? Do you have a concealed carry permit? Yeah. What's the problem? That's like saying somebody saw me, do you have a driver's license? Yeah. Well, what are you worried about? When I was 15, my dad, allegedly, I drove to work when I was 15, and my dad told me, if I catch you on pavement, I'll kill you. I drove to the dairy farm, milked the cows, came home. Nobody knew, but I don't sweat the small stuff. As it pertains to holsters, you need a good holster. I think Kydex, which is nothing more than a plastic polymer type holster, maintains its shape, maintains its grip on the gun. And officially it gives no level of retention, is one of the better holsters. We can argue leather or whatever, but I definitely not freaking Uncle Mike's, and I'm not bashing on Uncle Mike. It is as many a first person's holster, but I don't want a canvas holster. I want a good, solid holster. So that's my opinion.
No, I'm right on there with you. I want to go ahead and show some bad examples. There's more to than just carrying the holster here. We have a couple of videos we're going to play here of somebody not actually taking into account their environment as well as the fact that they're carrying. So I'm going to go ahead and play these short videos. So this individual was he was open carrying and wasn't paying attention to his environment, and they just snatched it. Here's another
Watch
one.
this man walking into a Memphis gas station like it was just another day, but he had no idea he was about to get robbed for his gun. A guy walks in with his gun under his armpit. While in line, he is eyeing the other guy's gun. And just like that, the guy is left defeated, just standing.
And then we're only going to watch a few seconds of this one as well.
2 days ago, I did a video about a woman who had her gun taken from her while she was open carrying it in her back pocket. And in that video, I said this: if you're
So so far on this, for the viewers' purposes, we talked about your Second Amendment rights and the citizen responsibilities that go with it, and we're emphasizing on your training. So you've selected a weapon that's to protect yourself and your family. Are you getting the training, and where are you going to have to use that? Where would you possibly have to use that? So in out in the open, whether it be in a car, a conveyance, or in your home. And if you're not actually going and getting that kind of training, personally, this is Greg's opinion, I don't know how you're actually going to, maybe you'll get lucky. But if you don't get that kind of training, I think that your percentage of survivability is probably little to none. And I would have to say, if we want to talk about percentages of people who own guns in America, I think it's probably a pretty low percentage on people that actually go and pay for their own training. Would you agree with that?
I agree 100%. So my made up number, there's probably about 50,000 people in the country that actually train. And where I draw this number from is going to Gunsight, our school, other schools like us in the country, to include Thunder Ranch and some of the other schools, and to look at what they allow. Frank Proctor, look at what they allow for student count, add up all their courses that are done in the United States, and you're going to get. And by the way, when I go to a school like Clint Smith School, Thunder Ranch, I go to that school and bump into a dude that I went to another school with. You know what I'm saying? It's like we're the same junkies that are going to school, because all of a sudden we know, wait a minute, there's a lot to know. So is the number higher? Yeah, there might be probably quadruple that it goes for one course, right? And then they're a bona fide, they're John Wick. But as it pertains to that training number, I think it's very low. And to your point, and to be blunt, you have a better chance of being struck by lightning than you do in this country than you do to be robbed at gunpoint. And that's a true story. The problem is, if I'm robbed at gunpoint, what could I have done to prevent that? What can I do to protect my family? Lightning, easy. I hear lightning, I run away from it. The problem is, at 2 a.m. when I leave the bar, the restaurant, the airport, I go to my car and I get robbed. I can't do anything. There's a guy pointing a gun at me, or a girl pointing a gun at me. And I think that if you don't practice or have some kind of compass heading on how to get out of that situation, it's going to end poorly for you. The number, again, on the weekly, I have a conversation with Kevin. Kevin, let me ask you a question. In this situation, what would you do? I'd shoot him right to the ground. I'm like, no, you can't do that. What's in their hands? Well, nothing, Kevin. Did they put their hands up? Well, yeah, Kevin, but they were in my house. You don't come in my house. We can argue this all day long. Like, okay, you came in my house, I burned you to the ground. Okay, here's the good news. With the right lawyer, you're probably gonna get away with it. But two things: if you're married, you're moving, and you get to sleep with that the rest of your life. And it could have been avoided if you just expanded your knowledge, gone somewhere and taken a course.
Exactly. I mean, there's two other points with this that we want to talk about. Is that one, you also teach the use of tourniquets, pressure bandages, and stuffing gauze. It's what I call it. I know that's not the technical name for it, but your TACMed course, you offer that, and it's important to just as important to, in my opinion, with marksmanship is that you actually know how to plug bullet holes as well. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
So here's a rule. Jake, if you and I are in a gunfight, one of us is probably going to get tagged. And if you're on my team, I need to know how to prevent you from bleeding out. So being able to wound pack, that's the term that was eluding you. It's good. I'll let Max know that you remembered it. Okay. I'll totally lie to you. So wound packing, application of tourniquets, how to stop and slow down the bleed, and then your march order in order to get the casualty to a higher level of medical care. That's important. And before anybody just pigeonholes me and says, well, Kevin, that's only for gunfighting. Nuh-uh. Man, I have chainsaws, table saws. My brother allegedly had a couple beers and decided, you know what would be a great idea? I'm going to go build something. And with a circular saw, took a little bit off his thumb, just a little bit, barely misses it. That's where that trauma training comes to play, that, it's not just about gunfighting. It's about what happened in the kitchen. I love my Japanese Damascus knives, man. Here's the good news. They're sharp. Here's the bad news. They're sharp. You missed a tomato, that finger is going to have a laceration on it. And, how do you deal with that? So, and so many people, we blend the two together in our TACMED course with close confinement, close proximity pistol, and then also with the trauma aspects of it. And so many people, they come to the course for normally one or the other. Well, I want to do wound packing and the medical training. And then they realize, wait a minute, this is really cool. And that course, the TACMED course, we do some pretty I don't want to say crazy things. We do some training that opens up minds and eyes. And so, yeah, I think the medical aspect of it, and that, again, this is anybody, man, driving down the road, you see an accident, get out, you can apply first aid to folks and help people out. So, yeah, I think that's a huge component of not only just carrying a firearm and or something to protect yourself with, but being able to save folks from an injury or an accident that has nothing to do with a firearm. So
exactly. I think a lot of people, they forget. So we just lived through Hurricane Helene. I think I said that right.
Mm-hmm.
I know you guys got slammed. Yep, and that presented all the things that we're talking about. And I know that I'm not sure if you were, so a lot of people don't know is that besides BlueRidgeMarksmanship.com, you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, and I believe you're on X, and you do PSAs every now and then. And I love them. I mean, and so after the hurricane hit, you did quite a bit of those, and you put out thought-provoking dialogues on those platforms. So back to people like, this is never going to happen. I mean, that impacted us for, over a year. We're still living with some of the damage from Hurricane Helene. The other thing I would add is that so here you are, a U.S. citizen. I'm exercising my Second Amendment liberties. I have a responsibility to train myself so that I can protect my family and other loved ones, and definitely not actually, have accidents because I didn't train or whatever. But if you do get into that, a lot of people don't think about the liability insurance, and there's several agencies out there that offer those. I believe you guys have one that you recommend, but there's a bunch of them out there. So I want people to realize that those things also exist, and you should probably have that depending on what area you live in. Whether, I kind of have a bad thing through my career. I kind of think of the percentages of statistics. So I live in this area. What kind of things are actually I might deal with? And I've lived in the city, and fortunately enough for me now, I live in the middle of nowhere, and I really love that. But so yeah. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
So we have kind of jumped around. Currently, we're using Right to Bear as our they don't call in insurance. They get mad at me. Community network of lawyers that help you out. You pay a premium a year. And Right to Bear, their parent company is actually Palmetto State Armory. So if you've never heard of Right to Bear, that's fine. Odds are you've heard of Palmetto State Armory. So we got in bed with them. Why? You look at a majority of these cases, right? Dollar store, I think it was 2 years ago. Dude went in to rob dollar store, broke out his pew, and the clerk pulls his pew and burnt dude to the ground. And the dude's sister is on TV saying all he was doing was just robbing you. Why'd you have to shoot him? Yeah. That shows you that mentality of people that are out there like, wait a minute, you point a gun at me, and you've been in enough classes, Greg, to know. And Jake, I expect to see you in the next class. You know,
if I can get there, I'm assuming it's in North Carolina, but go ahead.
It is, baby. We got a place for you to stay. Come on.
I can get there. After the video, I definitely will.
You know, good. You can see some of this stuff we're talking about. You know, you get with these people and they're like, you know, don't point a gun at me. I tell people straight up, and Greg can attest to this. I explain to people, don't point a gun at me, because why? That's not what you do. And you know, one of the rules of firearm safety is don't point a gun at anything you're not willing to destroy. And it's not just a cliche thing that the NRA came up with, but it's like guns. There, you know, there's been cases where the gun has accidentally gone off due to negligence of the firearm owner in reassembling it, or the owner putting something that didn't belong. Or improper handling of the firearm. Regardless, like, don't point it at me, and all that. Not to get off track, but if you're in public and you shoot somebody, this isn't like 40 years ago where, oh, okay, dude had gun, Kevin shot dude with gun, protected his family, he's good to go, he's got to go to court, he's out. Now you look at George Floyd, you look at everything since Floyd, and now these guys are getting prosecuted for wrongful death suits and millions of dollars. And how do you protect your family, your livelihood, when you've gotten, you know, you defended yourself or your family, your friends, your loved ones, etc., and now you're going to court? And, you know, and I understand what our Miranda, you know, what our rights are, which is we're innocent until proven guilty. But Kevin's opinion, I think we're guilty till proven innocent. Exactly. In so many cases now. And so when you talk about having the ability to protect yourself, you know, and just simple math here, Greg shoots Kevin, Kevin's a bad guy. I go to court, I buy a big lawyer, and as long as the settlement's good enough that I get a slice of the pie and the lawyer gets a bunch of money, I'm going to sue the snot out of you because I think you've got money, even though I'm a bad guy. And I had no business pointing a gun at you. And you're a great person and you're retired law enforcement and you shot me and everything looked good. But I got a good lawyer and you don't have the money to defend yourself. I'm going to bury you because it's just like the little guy taking on the big guy, being a major conglomerate, Walmart, Anheuser-Busch, etc. And, you know, they're just going to outspend you to get your money. So, I mean, if you're carrying a firearm to protect yourself, at a bare minimum, what lawyer are you going to call at a bare minimum? Because, you know, everybody's, and to your point, oh, I'm going to carry a gun to protect myself. Okay, great. What happens next? What's the next step? And that's one thing I loved about the military. We had to plan from start to finish. And so, okay, so I've got a gun, check. I got my ammunition, check. First aid kit, check. Light, check. I know where my buddies are at, check. What happens if I press trigger? And if you can't answer that question, if you're watching this show and you cannot answer what to do next, like you don't even know what to do besides call 911, then you're in for a rude awakening.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think it's vital to have some kind of insurance.
Yeah, Philadelphia, we have.
Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, we have this district attorney who actually targets law enforcement officers for shooting bad guys. So he's a Zoros appointed guy. You may have heard of him. He's also the guy who wants to lock up ICE.
Right.
The idiot. So, which is my nemesis, who I go after. But it's funny you said a bunch of things. My first holster, you brought back a lot of memories. My first holster 30 years ago was that Uncle Mike's for that big 45 cannon that I had. But like you said with your Uncle Mike's, it's concealed, but it's not concealed. They have the one with the option where you go through the strap or it goes outside or inside. And no matter how you wore that Uncle Mike's holster, it showed. So, and for most of my career, I wore that leather pancake holster that you're talking about. And a lot of the training, like Greg brought up and you brought up, was the injuries. And a lot of the training that we have when you talking about being injured and having to use your non-dominant hand, most of the training, I'm sure your training is not like, they have you grab the firearm with your dominant hand and transfer it to your non-dominant hand and shoot it from and I agree that's the wrong way, because if you don't have your non-dominant hand, then how are you going to get the gun from, and if you don't have that muscle memory to use your non-dominant hand if something happens to your dominant hand, then you're in the world of hurt. So I mean, of course, I couldn't go to the instructor and, say, hey, what are you doing?
Right.
If you don't have, because then I would get 18s, which is disciplinary. I would get disciplined for it probably. And probably a 3 or 4 day suspension, maybe 5. Well, my record probably 15 to 30. But anyway, so that's why when I looked at the first video that Greg showed, I loved it, and I am going to try. I'm hoping you guys recovered up there in North Carolina, because that was a hell of a storm last year. But it's like you said, pushing that cart back from your car. You don't know when that threat is going to come after you. And I'm like you guys. I'm from the city. I'm used to the guerrilla warfare and looking down every alley, worrying about what's coming next. Now I'm out, and I think I've become lax. I think when you move from that environment to the woods or wherever the case may be, you lose that, that reaction every time that I think you need, and I think that's part of your training. If I'm right or wrong, I don't know. You can tell me.
No, you're hitting it right on the money. We don't simulate anything in our training. Be like, hey, and both of you guys being prior military and law enforcement, okay, I called it the wand of tacticality. Okay, we're tactical. Like, no, the gun didn't mysteriously, like to your point, get out of my holster and get in my non-dominant hand when my dominant hand is injured. Like, that's not the way that works. So I can't build the right pathways to get through that point. And I agree 100%. We get lax, post Helene, 6 months, post Helene, everybody was, hey, generators are working, food, water, etc. And now that we're over the year mark, I think a lot of people, they don't have that anymore. Because why? It's not an imminent threat. And all you got to do, man, I don't live life out of fear. I do not. Growing up, guys, you remember the weatherman, and to totally date myself, he never said, tomorrow it's going to rain and you better bring your galoshes. They never said that. They just said, hey, tomorrow's it's going to rain. You probably should, so bring your umbrella. That wasn't fear. And I think that if you don't stay well-rounded, and to your point, Jake, I always challenge my students to play a game called What If Now. And right now, if somebody comes at you, where's your gun? Where's your loved one? Where's your phone? And if you don't know where this stuff is, and all it is a mental exercise. That's it. I'm not paranoid. Nobody's out there trying to kill me. I just, when you're sitting in line, and unfortunately, so many people have turned to this damn thing. But when I'm sitting in line, when I'm sitting in the doctor's office, I count people and what if now? When I'm sitting in traffic, I count cars. What if now? You just look around, and it's amazing what you see. And some loved ones I have in my life, And they're like, Dad, did you see that over there? And I'm like, well, yeah, I did. And because we're always playing this game and to notice things. And Jake, you nailed it. If you don't kind of practice it from time to time, it will atrophy big time. And you got to know your surroundings. Those videos you showed, the girl was at the ATM. She was occupied. By the way, that's not the way you carry a gun. For all the love of God in this world, that's not the way you carry a gun. Number two, homeboy in the stab and jab, literally. You know, you don't walk into a place with a gun in your back pocket or stuffed in your pants. It's called Mexican style, and that's what the gauchos were doing in the late 1800s. It's not a racist statement. It's called Mexican style for a reason. You know, you don't do that. That's ridiculous. And I think people have, well, I've got a gun. People are going to be afraid of me. And both of you arrested people at gunpoint. And I'll tell you what, if I meet somebody that one of you two arrested at gunpoint, they've already had a gun pointed at them. And unlike the three of us sitting here who could put on a mean mug, 90% of the people I deal with, that's the expression on their faces. They're good, nice people. They're not intimidating. And they pull out a gun, and homeboy or homegirl or whoever is not going to be worried about somebody who looks like they're late for soccer practice pointing a gun at them. So training, being aware of your environment, I think those are all huge. They're all puzzle pieces that fit together, and it doesn't have to take all of your time to get better at doing any of that. You know what I'm saying?
100%. So as a citizen of whatever state you live in, you should know your gun laws. You should know how your weapon operates really, really well. You should train. You should think about your environment. You should know how to do some basic first aid. Anything else that you want to throw in there for citizen responsibilities with your Second Amendment rights?
Yeah, just to kind of expand upon something, because we used words like situational awareness, right? So like, what is that? What does it mean, right? But you nailed it, train. I deal with a lot of people, and we have a couple courses, beginner level and the concealed carry course, and their gun jams up for whatever reason. Limp wristed, failure to extract, whatever, right? Or they boogered it up loading it. And they hold it out in front of them, and their hand goes up. Now, I'm not being a jerk. You were there. I was there. Jake, I'm sure you were there. Semi-automatic gun malfunction. We looked at it like we were looking at something from the moon. Here's the bad news. If you're downtown Philadelphia, downtown Arkansas, Little Rock, downtown Memphis, and your gun jams, you can't raise your hand. No one's coming. So if you don't know how to operate your pistol in not just at and I'm not bagging on the NRA, but not at like an NRA course where, okay, here's malfunction, here's this. Like, understand like how, if we get entangled, Greg, and you and I get entangled and a gun gets out and it gets discharged and it goes off, like, what's in the chamber? Can you tap racket with one hand? And again, I am not trying to be John Wick. I can only imagine what you guys did in your careers. You ended up in a scuffle of sorts, if not many. And the gun comes out. It's like, okay, I got one hand on mine and one hand on bad dude. So how do I rack the gun? Oh, excuse me, bad guy. I'm going to borrow my hand just for a moment. I'll return it in just a second. That awesome wrist lock I have. You know what I mean? But you can't do that. It's just not going to happen. And if you don't know how to run your gun properly, you talk about train in different conditions. And, you know, it brings me to another point. What does your physical fitness level look like? And I think a lot of people, they love to have excuses of, oh, I don't have time. Okay. So let me get this straight. You just told me a minute ago that you would hurt anybody that hurt your kid. Mm-hmm. You would hurt anybody that would hurt your wife. Mm-hmm. Would you die for them? Absolutely. I would die for my family. Cool. Then why don't you take 20 minutes a day and work out for your family? And exactly. The look on their face, And, you know, I get everybody's got problems, man. You know, your medical record versus my medical record. Like, yep, I got it. Yep, we all got our issues. But like, go do something, because the bad guy does not give you a handicap freaking because of your physical abilities. He's not going to go, oh, you're over 65, so we're going to stay off the ground. I don't want you to break a hip. You know what I mean? That's not the way that goes down. And I think if you carry yourself well and you have good physical fitness, you don't have to be a marathoner, but you have to have that component. And again, we're talking about putting a puzzle together. Your ability to take care of yourself, know how your firearm operates, and then how to fix it at night. In some of our advanced courses, we have them close their eyes. Why? Because we teach it during broad daylight. And now if you're good with your eyes closed, and you know, we simulate nighttime, we do low light training as well, where we don't have to worry about closing your eyes. But can you fix your gun at night? And I'm not a LARPer. I don't teach how to game. I work with IDPA, USPSA shooters all the time. There's not a problem with that. I love that. It's fun. But I'm more reality based of knowing that 80% of crime takes place during the hours of limited visibility. The bad guy is going to ambush you. And how do I know that? If I'm walking down the street, Jake, and I see you staring at me, you're not my target. I'm going to pick somebody else who's staring in their damn phone or off aloof, looking at wherever, or they're not carrying themselves well. I'm going to pick that wounded gazelle out of the pack. That's who I'm going to pick on. And you guys both put people behind bars. And when they look at the studies of why bad people pick their targets, you'll see what comes to light well over, I think it's 80%, 85% of the time, are people that look disheveled and are not paying attention. That's the number one thing that people in prison pick. They've asked them, they've interviewed them time after time again. University of Illinois, University of Austin, Texas, and their law enforcement programs, pre-law programs, and they ask, how do you pick your marks? They're not paying attention. They're aloof. They look easy, and that's why they get picked, you know? So I think when you couple everything together, work out 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day, you know, don't make damn excuses. For every excuse that you give me of why you're not working out, I'll give you 4 why you should be working out. You know, get your sorry ass up, in prison, go work out, stop giving me, you know, the Latin word for no. Oh, you know, no, right. You're damn right. There's 10 guys right now on Instagram who are in prison who have got over 1 million followers, and they're working out every day, showing tips from prison. It's ridiculous. But yeah,
the Latin word that you were going to use?
The Latin word is excuse, and it means no one cares. It's a Latin word. No one cares. No one cares.
Kevin,
you know, why didn't you work out? Why didn't you train with your pistol? Well, no one cares. No one cares.
Kevin, it was such an honor to have you on the show today. We're coming up to the bottom of the hour. We're going to wrap. First off, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and we would love to have you again. Thank you for having a school that I can go to a couple times a year and get the personal training that I need. And if our producer Bill will allow us, I think that we should end and wrap on this one last video that'll play about 1 minute and 30 seconds, because I can sit here till I'm blue in the face and just sing praises of you, your instructors at Blue Ridge Marksmanship. But let's hear what some other people have to say. And thanks again, Jake. Thanks for letting me have this opportunity, and we'll go ahead and we'll wrap on this video right here.
Thank you.
All I gotta say is double thumbs up at Blue Ridge Marksmanship. These guys know what they're doing. They teach you what they know. They've elevated me as a shooter. I know they'll elevate you as a shooter. If you have any doubts whatsoever, I would highly recommend reaching out to Kevin and the crew. Stand by! Draw!
Hey, I'm Vanessa, and my husband and I discovered Blue Ridge Marksmanship out of happenstance, but we met Kevin and immediately fell in love with the whole place. we keep coming back because of the culture, and it's a super safe environment to learn. I would tell someone that was new that it is paced to your level. So I started out not really knowing anything about pistols and have really been able to comfortably advance, and that's made a huge difference in how I can shoot.
Blue Ridge Marksmanship is one of the best places you can go. It's very inclusive. It's very comfortable to be here. There's people from all walks of life, and I learn something every single time I go here.
One last thing real quick, Kevin. The oldest students you've ever had at your school?
83 years old.
That's
83
awesome.
years old, and she had rheumatoid arthritis, and she is one of the only people I've ever recommended a 22 for, but I think a 22 works better than pepper spray.
Well, 2A is a right. The Second Amendment is a right. It's our responsibilities to exercise it properly. So we want to wish you all a great week. Thank you again, Kevin. Thanks, Jake.
Thanks, Kev. Thank you.
You all